Today was a lot of fun. I decided that today's Sunday, I'm going to take some time off, just relax for a while. And so I took my grandkids and took them to a park that's near here, and they swam for a while. We had a picnic, had a great time. But that's not what this video is about. But it was coming home that I had something just going through my head. We were so relaxed and just enjoying ourselves, and it didn't really matter what was going on in my life. I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't being stressed about stuff. And what I kept thinking was that I don't worry. I just don't worry. And that might sound really odd because we all have stress in our lives. That is normal. But for most people, I guess, it's kind of hard to have the idea of not worrying about things that are going wrong or problems, challenges that we have, because it's a normal thing to worry. But I have made a decision not to worry, because even though in some situations, like here, I live in Guatemala, and the culture is just a little bit different here. And one thing I've found is that if people are going through problems and you don't worry with them about their problems, and actually, not just being concerned, but worry, like, oh, this is horrible, and expressing it like that, it looks like you don't care. And I've had to kind of work to not fall into that worrying, but to respond in a different way. So instead of worrying, I kind of go at it from a different angle. And this is what I want to explain to you, because if you do deal with worrying about things, this really could help you out. So hear me out. Instead of worrying, you can be concerned about things. But if you worry about stuff, that adds more stress into the situation. And really worrying, I don't know all the technical stuff about it, but the things that go on in your brain and in your nervous system when you're under stress, and when the stress gets really strong, what happens is that you go into a mode of fight or flight, and your whole body just concentrates on dealing with the stress. And what happens with that is that it kind of stops your ability to be creative. That part of your brain just isn't functioning like it could if you were more relaxed. And you probably noticed that you're more creative when you're relaxed, when you're not worried about stuff. Now, if you've got a problem, if you've got a situation that needs to be solved, needs to be taken care of, what you need is to be able to be creative. Because if you can't be creative, then you're not going to be able to solve the problem. So that's one part of it, that worrying actually works against you when you're trying to get through problems. So I made the decision not to worry. I can't say that was really easy to stick with, because you have to have more of a reason than just, oh, I'm not going to worry about things. You have to have some kind of a hope or some kind of a resource that you can shift your thought patterns to that instead of the worry thing. And worry is so very, very common. I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's just something you hear about, that people are worrying so much about different things for good reasons. But it is just something that you've got to break free from, because it will just work against you. Now, what I go to instead of that is knowing that I will be provided for, not just talking about prosperity and meeting my needs and having the stuff that I need to live, but provided for in anything that I might be concerned about, that it seems like things are not working, things are not going right. There's a trust there that things are going to find the right path, that I am going to receive the knowledge or the inspiration or the resources that I need to be able to get through that. There's a trust there and a hope. You can't drop worry out of your life unless you have a hope. And I just want to go into one way that you can look at this that will help you to pull yourself out of that worry. And that is, it's the law of sowing and reaping. Now, that is a pretty universal law because we live all the time with the results of sowing and reaping. If you want to look at it naturally, the food you eat. Okay, somebody had to sow a seed, and that seed reproduced, and somebody had a harvest from it. Now, in our lives, it's the same thing, that when we sow in different areas of our lives, we can trust that we're going to have a harvest from that. Now, that could be a positive thing. Sometimes it's a negative thing. So it's important to make sure that we're not sowing bad seeds. And that bad seeds could be in negative habits, negative attitudes, or just a state of not trusting, a state of fear, and doing things out of fear. But if we are sowing into things that will give us the kind of a harvest that we want, if we're sowing kindness to people, then we're going to get kindness back. If you're sowing favor to people, then you're going to receive favor. If you're sowing, for example, being generous to people with physical things, and it doesn't have to be big. It can just be what you can do at the moment. If you're sowing kindness or forgiveness, then all of these things are things that we have need of. And it's the lack of all of those things that can cause us to worry. But if you know that you've sowed seeds in those areas, if you can think, well, yeah, I've been kind, I've been merciful, I've been forgiven, then you can expect to reap a harvest of those things in your own life. So that when you're tempted to worry about a situation, identify what the root is of what you really need to resolve that situation. If you have sowed advice to somebody, good advice, good counsel, then you can assume, you can trust that you will receive the counsel, the advice, the ideas and inspiration that you need to be able to get through what you're going through. And the wonderful thing is that the way this works is that if you sow something, you are not going to reap the same amount that you sow. Think about it. If you sow 1 grain of corn, you're not going to harvest 1 grain of corn. You're going to harvest at least a whole ear of corn, and it'll be more than you need to be able to solve the problem. The whole idea of that is that you eat part of it and you plant the other part of it, and you end up getting that increase. And I'm not just talking about money, not at all. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about the things that are in you, the gifts that are in you, the insights that you have that you can share. I mean, it even comes down to goofy little things like where I live, the traffic is pretty crazy. And so I try to sow breaks in traffic. So I let people in front of me. I let pedestrians cross, which maybe where you live is the law. Here it supposedly is, but people look at you funny like, oh, thank you, if you let them cross the street. But when you sow those little things, then when you're in a spot in traffic and it's like, oh, how am I ever going to get through that? Then it's almost like the Red Sea parts and you can get through. And it happens to me right when I need it because I know I have sown, and I don't worry, even just fretting in that moment in traffic. What am I going to do? I'm in a hurry, I just trust that things will open up. And I know traffic is just like a little example of it, but in my life, I've got some pretty big things going on that I do need the parting of the Red Sea, right? I need to walk through on dry ground. But I know that's going to happen because there is good seed sown. And I do believe in God, and I do believe in spiritual principles, and that is a spiritual principle. And as one of my friends pointed out, that is a principle that even exists in any religion you can think of, that if you sow, you're going to reap what you sow. And to me, that has been such a bedrock of security, such an anchor, because hope is an anchor. When you have hope in something like that, and you have hope also in the fact that I believe that it comes from the hand of God, when I do reap my harvest. And if you have hope in what you're expecting, then hope is that anchor that keeps you in the right place, even, when the winds are blowing, you don't get blown about. So it comes down to the fact that we really don't have to worry. If we can be calm, like the song says, don't worry, be happy, or stay calm, any of those things, you hear all this advice about not worrying and being calm, but we can really get to that point, because when we worry, we're just working against ourselves. But when we stop and consider our lives, what we have sown in the lives of other people, of the things that we need, not just with the intention that, okay, I'm going to do this so I can get it back, but from our hearts, from our personality, just deep inside of us, what we really need to do for others because of the relationships that we have, you're going to find that you have this strong hope within you, and a reason to be calm, and a reason to be able to sit and think things through rationally, and then find a solution. If you can't solve the problem, you'll find a way to deal with the problem and to be calm. You'll find resources that may not have their results tomorrow, but you'll have hope that as you sow into that you're going to see it come back to you. So don't worry. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but the next time you're tempted to worry, just remember two things. Basically, remember, number one, if you want to get through this thing and get an answer for it, worrying is going to prevent you from finding that answer so easily. Worrying stops your creativity. And the other thing I want you to remember is that I know you've already sown good seed in your life. Think about what you've sown, think about what you need, and think about it coming back to you. Now, I hope that this will help to keep you calm in the face of your next opportunity to worry about something. But I just had to share that with you because it's just so strong on my heart. Just a little note here, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? And that way we can stay in touch, okay? And I'll see you soon in the next video.